Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, I want to talk about the difference between a flame and a Harlequin and why it matters, why it really doesn't matter, and then kind of talk about the really fine details of what makes up what. So let's get right into it. First gecko that I'm going to be showing off is Gloria here, okay? And Gloria is a partial pinstripe Harlequin. You could argue that she's a tricolor too, but what I want you to focus on is the legs, right? So you see how her legs have a ton of patterning on them? That's how we know that she's a Harlequin. In theory, you know, you could have a gecko with a ton of side patterning and no leg patterning, and that's still technically a flame. Now, I use I'll insert a picture of the guide that I personally use right here. So this is the guide that I use to morph my geckos and to morph other people's geckos if they ask me. But typically for me, if I see leg patterning, I'm going to call it a Harlequin, because to me, a true flame will have zero leg patterning or like super minimal leg patterning. And I'm going to pull out our guy Thurman here and kind of show you what that looks like. Okay, so I have Thurman here now, and Thurman to me is, like I said, personally, I'm not going to call him a flame, but he's extremely close to being a flame. So here's his side. It has a ton of pattern on it, but you see on his leg right there, when you compare that to Gloria, he only has like this one little spot right here, and then if I go to his hind leg, he has like a little spot right here. Thurman doesn't have a whole lot of leg pattern, and that's why Thurman, we had our flame project last year. He was the male in that, because he doesn't have much leg patterning, and if I paired him with girls who didn't have much leg patterning, typically their babies come with like no leg patterning sometimes. When he fires up, he has zero leg pattern. So then again, you get into the, you know, does a gecko, is it fired up? Is that when you morph it? Do you morph it fired down? Do you do both? You know, that's kind of up to you. For me, when it comes to a flame, I see that he has a tiny bit. So he works well with a flame project, but is he technically a flame? Probably not. Now then again, when he's fired up, like I said, it is a pitch black leg, so he looks like a flame. That's just one of those things where it kind of comes down to projects that you want to work with, and if that gecko is part of that project or not to you, right? So to me, he's not a flame, but he is so close to being a flame, especially when I compare him to my other Harlequins that we have in our project, which I'm going to pull out a couple of those real quick so you can kind of see more leg patterning compared to this dude who doesn't have really much at all. So let's pull those out. Okay, so I snagged my girl Betty here, who is a very obvious Harlequin. Kind of see that. Tons of leg patterning. Side patterning does matter, guys, but it's just one of those things where, you know, when I pull a gecko that's closer to an extreme Harlequin, it's more of an extreme example of that, right? So if you have a gecko that has the laterals touching their dorsals in extreme Harlequin, I've never seen a gecko that doesn't have any leg patterning at all and still has that. I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure it exists. And at that point, I don't even know what you would call that. Just being honest. If somebody has that, send it to me. I'd love to see that, because that's really interesting. It's a very obvious difference in even the amount of side patterning you kind of saw from Thurman. He has what looks to be a very busy pattern, but it's not very busy when you compare it to this girl and how much patterning she has on her sides, because it encompasses so much of her body. So to me, obviously, this is a Harlequin, obviously. Thurman, like I said, I don't necessarily think he's 100% a flame, but I think he's so close that I would probably call him a low expression Harley. But he worked really well in a flame project that we had going on. And I'm actually going to pull out one of his babies so you can kind of see that too. Being super chill. What a good crested gecko this is. This gecko actually is sold to John. And John, I know he watches the videos. Yeah, and John watches the videos. And this gecko, it's kind of fired down right now. But what kind of happened with our flame project is our flame project kind of turned into Thurman's greenish hued baby project. I mean, I know I'm not big on calling animals like greens or olives or anything like that. Gotta have fast hands with this little dude. take note, John. But I do enjoy that hueish tint to them. I don't label them like that. I don't sell them like that. Look at that. See that leg patterning? This to me looks like it's going to be a low expression Harlequin. With this looking like a low expression Harlequin to me, I think that my whole thing with any of this thing is nuts. My whole thing with any of this is that I don't like seeing people just like label anything with side patterning as a Harlequin. Or low expression Harlequins as flames, because it kind of takes away from what a true flame is and how pretty a true flame is whenever you have one. By labeling everything like a low expression Harlequin, or like saying a low expression Harlequin is a flame, it devalues what a true flame looks like, and once you see a true flame, it really doesn't make sense to call a low expression Harlequin a flame. But unfortunately, that's kind of what happens, is if people don't see enough side patterning or enough leg patterning, they just call it a flame. And there's definitely an argument to be made there, but I think that it happens way too often on geckos that are just normal Harlequins. Like, Harlequins they're so vast. You know, the most popular morph is probably a Harlequin pinstripe of some sort, right? So that's why, though, is because there are so many versions. You know, it's not just here's a Harlequin and here's an extreme Harlequin. Even within just the normal Harlequin, there are so many variances that can happen. Even with extremes, there's a ton of variants. So it's not crazy to think that a low expression Harlequin can exist. I call them low expression Harlequins. I used to never call them that, because it's either a Harlequin or it isn't. So if it is a Harlequin, great. If it isn't, great. But for some reason, I've just seen that lately. It just seems like calling things low expression Harlequin seems to make more sense. And I think it helps beginners and people who are learning to morph. I really think it helps them get a hang on how to morph properly and what to look for. Because with there being so many variants, it can be hard to be like, this gecko's a Harlequin, and then insert a picture of blank, and then this is also a Harlequin, but it looks totally different. That's my opinions on flame versus Harlequin. You know, if it has leg patterning, assume it's a Harlequin, and then from that point, just kind of go on with whether, what level of Harlequin is it? Is it low expression, normal, or extreme Harlequin? Alright guys, that's gonna wrap up the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Comment down below your thoughts on Harlequin versus flame. And just kind of tell me, you know, if you disagreed with me, or if you do agree with me, just let me know. Because I'm always trying to learn, because I know that I don't know literally everything about these guys. So it's important to have feedback. I think our comment section is like really good at that. And I think there's a lot of people who chime in a lot of good stuff. So comment down below. And until next time, guys, stay safe and stay positive.